It had been a hurried day. Katie discovered that if you don't sit down and put your shoes on properly, it can take a lot longer. Orbie learned that if you don't close the bottom of the playing cards box, you'll have to pick up 52 things. And they both discovered that a flag only flies when there's wind. Mom showed Katie and Orbie pictures of a young dad and some other boys pushing a green and white bathtub. It was Dad's high school bathtub race. Katie thought the idea was terrific fun. So did Orbie. But he wanted to know how they got the bathtubs out of the bathroom. He burbled his confusion. Dad laughed and said that anything that looked like a bathtub could be used in the race. Well, you know that Katie and Orbie were all for anything that sounded like great fun. Katie thought maybe they should have a bathtub race, too. Dad chuckled, then thought about it. A real bathtub would be too heavy for them to push, and besides, they didn't have a spare one. But then he had an idea. Mom could tell that Dad was thinking the race was a good idea. Katie and Orbie jumped around the room in excitement. Then they ran through the colorful fallen leaves to all the neighbors' houses. They gave out bright-colored flyers to announce the race. Orbie noticed that everyone who read the announcement chuckled. This was going to be fun. He could just tell. Everyone in the neighborhood got into the race. They became very secretive about what they were going to use. Big boxes of odd things and old used wheels were brought into houses and hidden until the special day. Every person wanted their bathtub to be a surprise. All kinds of giggles and shrieks came from backyards and behind garage doors. Dad chose an old washtub which he told Katie and Orbie was close enough. Katie and Orbie painted it yellow, and Orbie added some pink polka dots so everyone would know who it belonged to. They stuck ribbons and bows on it and a big homemade flag at the back. Next, they opened up the umbrella Great Uncle David had given them, and Dad tied it to the front of the tub. It was fantabulous. Finally, it was the day of the first ever annual neighborhood bathtub race. Dad rolled the tub onto the driveway. Orbie was so excited. "Let's try it out," he burbled and hopped inside. Katie cheered as she pushed him around. It worked really well. Just then, Orbie saw Yi Ping. Hers was made from an old baby carriage. She had painted it bright red and worked really hard at making the front of it into a dragon's head. Katie and Orbie just loved it. Arthur was going to help Yi Ping. Next, they saw Andy's. He had an old cauldron tied to his wagon. He decorated it in all kinds of colors. Andy wore his chef's hat to be funny. Charisse was going to be his passenger. When they got to the park, they saw Megan, Charlie, and Mr. and Mrs. Covington there, too. Their racing tub started out as a square laundry basin, but you could hardly tell. It looked more like an engine of a train. Megan pulled a whistle, and Orbie tooted. It was excellent. Dakota and his friend Kip arrived pushing a cooler that was decorated with native Indian designs and beads and feathers. His father helped him with the drawings. Satya brought her friend Sandra. They used a plastic baby bath. Satya covered it in silks and trimmed it with beautiful jingling bells. Everyone loved what everyone else had done with their bathtubs. Soon, all the tubs were lined up at the starting ribbon. Tom was the starter. He was dressed up in flashy colors and carried a big handbell. He shouted, "On your mark, get set," and clang, 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 they were off. With a mighty shove, Orbie pushed off and the washtub started to roll. Katie and the other riders squealed with excitement, and pushers all laughed and ran. Moms and dads waved and cheered from the sidelines. Everything Katie looked at was bouncing up and down, just as much as she was. But it was so much like a crazy carnival ride that she just laughed harder. Orbie honked and tooted as he raced along over the uneven ground and zigzagged to avoid the other racers who were also zigzagging all over the place. Two tubs almost bumped together. Then Orbie heard Tom's bell clang again, and Tom shouted, Halfway! Switch places, everybody! There was a mad scramble as tub riders leapt out to become tub pushers, and pushers jumped inside. Andy and Charisse waited. The new pushers ready, everyone raced off, and the riders bounced even higher than before. Katie was a great pusher, but she soon discovered it was very hard to steer the wash tub. It wanted to go all over the place. Orbie was tooting and waving his arms when suddenly he went sailing through the air. Katie didn't see the little dip in the ground ahead of them, and the wash tub tipped right over. Orbie landed in a heap, and Katie stumbled to the grass and rolled, and they both came up giggling. All the other racers stopped and ran over to help. After all, the race was just for fun. Mom and Dad and Tom pronounced them just fine, and they scrambled back into their tub. On a quick 1, 2, 3 count, everyone dashed off again, heading for the finish line. Mrs. Perrette stood under a big banner with a checkered flag raised in the air. It looked like Dakota would win. He was pushing as hard as he could. Then Yi Ping came forward and passed him. Next, Megan and Charlie bounced ahead. Katie and Orbie were coming from behind, too. Orbie tooted and pointed to the finish line. They were almost there. The crowd cheered as the tubs all bounced and bumped over the finish line. Mrs. Perrette waved the flag. Dakota won. Katie and Orbie won second place. Yi Ping and Satya tied for third. Andy and Charisse won fourth, and Megan and Charlie were fifth by a hair. Everybody clapped. Each racer got a beautiful ribbon to pin on their shirt and a toy plastic bathtub. Mrs. Perrette took pictures so they could all remember the day. The first annual neighborhood bathtub race was a great success. It didn't matter who won at all. It only mattered that everyone had fun. And do you know, that's absolutely true. I hope you remember to have fun if anyone ever asks you to run a race.